Hello and welcome back to Spotlight by the Intelligence. I have today with me Christian Caicedo, aka Envious Audio, aka Lushpuppy DnB, one of my favorite podcasters on the planet. How you doing today, man?
Good. How are you, man?
Dude, I'm doing great. This is so exciting for me. I
Oh,
literally cut to like 2 years ago. I binged every single episode of Electronic Dance Money. You'll have to forgive me if the details are fuzzy because I've been doing the opposite as of late. And I felt like you had so much useful knowledge that you were just giving away freely that it warms my heart to be able to have you here on behalf of my work doing that for me.
yeah. No, I'm super excited to be here, man. There's, the biggest thing I always struggled with expanding the podcast, which by the way, I'll talk a little bit about that before I even jump into this. For those of you who may not know me, I ran an audio. I mean, I still technically do run an audio engineering business, doing mixing and mastering for EDM producers. I've started that in like 2019, and as a part of there's two ways I was going about trying to get new clients and new leads. It was going into the advertising space, which was tremendously helpful for me in my personal professional life, and has been majorly successful. And that was all just picking up a course, learning how to do it, applying it to my own businesses, getting a couple of clients, adding that to a resume, and eventually getting a job in a really, really good place. So it was that, and then doing content through the podcast, my podcast, Electronic Dance Money, which the whole premise of that podcast was to teach EDM producers the business side of the industry and the stuff that people don't talk about, which is like, people have been led to believe for years, and this was primarily when I was first starting as a producer, in like 2012, 2013, the big thing was like, oh, you just need one song. Just always live in the studio, be in the studio. All you need is one song that goes big and you've got it made. And this was the time when like Animals came out and you saw the rise of Martin Garrix. And so that belief was just like, it was really solidified. And that was probably the biggest lie ever told in the industry. And it's becoming even more apparent that that is a complete lie. I know huge producers. I mean, names that I could drop that most people would know, household names. They're part of record labels and they struggle to this day to maintain relevancy and even like just get by with just writing music. And so you can't just write music now. You have to be doing other things to that kind of build up this whole brand image of yourself, and get your name out there. And so that was the whole point of like starting this podcast in 2019, was to teach the weird unknown side that people don't know about. And the thing I always struggled with that podcast in terms of that was a grassroots movement with that podcast. I mean, I released the first 3 episodes in like June of 2019. I released 3 episodes at once that had been pre-recorded, and then I was trying to get a guest every I wanted to do a guest interview every episode and do it every 2 weeks. It was very hard to find good guests. So it started to turn into a solo podcast and a mixture of guests. And I wasn't sure how the solo stuff would go. And it ended up doing well, but I'm not kidding. I did like no advertising. I think I only ever did one interview, maybe 2 podcast interviews with other people. And that was towards the end of the podcast. But I mean, strictly just posting it online on socials and just letting kind of the value of it speak for itself and spread by word of mouth. And I was getting to a point where I was almost getting about 1,000 downloads a month. And that was, again, no advertising, no money behind, no nothing. And so I was really proud of that, but I really struggled with growth because I could not get interviews on other podcasts. And the tricky thing is that there's just very few interviews in this space, in the space that I was trying to play in. You know, there's a lot of podcasts now where, you know, there's a few people in the EDM scene, electronic music scene, who they're just interviewing big artists. And I don't think that would fit the bill for what I'm trying to do. You know, I was trying to reach to producers and not necessarily the general audience of electronic music enjoyers or fans. And so you hitting me up, it's just, I was telling you before the show, I had another buddy who hit me up, I think the day before, and he's starting a podcast, and he's like, hey, you want to be a guest on it? And I'm doing an interview later tonight for that. So it's like, it was just, I missed the mark by a couple of years of like getting some extra interviews that would have been tremendously helpful. So it's a lot of fun to be interviewed on other podcasts after doing hundreds of hours of my own interviews, and then talking to essentially myself into a microphone. You know, I always say everything that I would say on the show was like, it's me reflecting and talking to my old self, and just trying to like reach that kid or that person that is just, you know, they're a year in, 2 years in, and they might have that mindset of like, I just need to grind. I get that one side. It's unfortunately not that easy. It's not as easy as that. So yeah, I'm super, super excited to be here.
I'm glad you took the leap and spoke to yourself, because I mean that reached me as like a producer trying to find my footing, and I feel like, you know, like X amount of years later, it's all starting to pay off. It contributes to this like this pool of mental knowledge and experience that I think a lot of people don't really know where to get. And so, like, you know, you talked about not doing advertising and stuff. I found the Electronic Dance Money podcast because I hunted for it. I was like, I need this knowledge and someone out there has it. So, you know, to hear you out here talking to yourself and divulging these quote unquote trade secrets and whatnot, I think that it both like speaks to a willingness to give. And I've heard you talk about like the Go Giver podcast, which I tried to listen to and could not quite get into as much as yours. I think just it being a little bit more general as opposed to like the specific knowledge I was looking for. I have call it like, you ever seen like horse races? I had blinders on looking for exactly what I needed. With that in mind, though, it's like we live in a time of free information, right? We'd be ignorant not to like make our best use of it. And we also live in the age of like the independent artist now. So when you talk about the ability to get interviews, I couldn't possibly imagine hopping on this show and talking to myself. It's like I thrive on having guests, and I'm lucky to be part of an organization that brings the guests to me. It makes my job so much easier because I don't feel like I have the ethos to sit and talk to myself on behalf of some of these. So I guess what I want to ask starting off, since you led with such a great introduction, is when you talk to yourself on the podcast, where did that knowledge come from?
Oh man, that came from like, so it came from running my own business. Everything you learn in running a business as an entrepreneur, you can directly apply to being a music producer. This is the thing that musicians and artists hate to hear. And it's unfortunate because this is probably the one thing that is holding you back from like going beyond where you're at now. Okay, so there are two types of artists realistically. There are what's now like been marked on the internet as like an industry plant, and it usually, that you see it, you can sniff an industry plant, you can feel when there's money behind an artist being shoved into your face on social media. It's very blatant, it's very obvious. Taylor Swift was an industry plant, Billie Eilish, another industry plant, Sabrina Carpenter, industry plant. Like, these are people who were like baked into the entertainment industry at a very young age, and through agencies and management, they were able to kind of develop this artist and this character and push them into the spotlight. Now, how much of that is them being an honest musician and how much of it is it being forced? I would say there is still some honesty to a lot of those people. I think Billie Eilish has a lot of honesty behind her work and her music, especially with her brother as being the head producer and engineer and all that. Like, there's still honesty there, but don't get it twisted. There's stuff backing them in the shadows. There's artists like that in the electronic music world as well. Again, don't get it twisted. There are artists like that. So there's that kind of artist where you get hooked up, you meet the right people at the right time. You get into rooms with the right management, with the right agencies. Maybe you're Maybe your family is associated with some big record labels. Like a lot of in electronic music, a lot of the big artists that kind of come out of nowhere, many of them have who you might identify as an industry plant. Many of them come from family connections. So, and it's less pushed on people, but they're very clearly put on the spotlight by certain streams of media through online, whether it's blogs, maybe it's radio, maybe it's record labels, maybe it's certain pages posting, or it's simply artists playing out certain tracks. So that would be like the electronic music scene industry plant. That's the first type of artist. Then there's like the second type of artist, which is probably most of us here and what most of us will go through. And that's like the bedroom producer. You're the person who maybe cracked Ableton or FL, and you know, you have a cracked version of Serum and all this other stuff, and you're just trying to learn, and you mess around, and eventually you get everything legit because it runs a lot better on your machine. And you start putting tracks out, and it's like, it's a grind. You're just like the best way to phrase it is, you know, you're in a pitch black room with your hands out trying to find the wall where the light switch is and turn it on and get that aha moment, and everything moves forward. And unfortunately, most of the time we'll be stumbling through that dark room until you finally find the switch. It doesn't come easy. It's very difficult. And so the thing that most artists don't want to hear is that you got to live outside the studio and treat your brand and who you are as a business. You're a business. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. I hate to tell you that as an artist, you are a business. You are a product, an agency, a management company, a record label. They are selling you as the product. And more, you know, management agency is mostly selling you as the product. The record label is selling your track as the product, but it's all coming from you. You are the product. You have to be able to market yourself. You have to have a brand image that makes sense. This all needs to be cohesive. There's not a single artist out there, unless you're fully independent. Maybe even those fully independent people, they're still treating themselves as a business. But most of the artists you see on record labels, they have a brand, they have an image, they're selling a product. They like, if you were to talk to them about business, the legit artists, they know what business looks like. They know their expenses. They have business accounts specifically for the artist's name that they have credit cards for, bank accounts for, and they do taxes for. And there's specific expenses, the way they get paid out in their management, and when they're purchasing flights, and when they're purchasing, like, they have insurance under the business name. Like, it is a business. So if you want to be legit, you have to go from this shifted mindset where a lot of people are, where they're like, it's just about the music, man. I'm an artist. I want to create art. I'm sorry, but you got to get into the business at some point. And you know, like, there comes a time where you manage a lot of the business stuff yourself, and eventually that could get handed off to management or agency stuff. And this builds into my first book suggestion to everyone, which would be the E-Myth Revisited. Fantastic book. And it's essentially about how you build a business from the ground up before you even open your doors or launch your website or sell your product. You need to read this book and like structure your business in this specific way. And it's the whole idea of the book is about how to build a franchise and what makes McDonald's so successful. It's because every time you step into a McDonald's, you know exactly what to expect. It doesn't matter if you live in Washington or if you live in Florida or if you live in Wyoming. It doesn't matter. The layouts are the same. The menu is the same. The outfits are the same. The bathrooms are just as clean as the other one. They're all the same. The back of the kitchen runs the exact same way it does in Wyoming as it does in New York. It doesn't matter. And that's the whole way you need to structure your business. Now, this is probably going a step too far in the direction you may need to go. But the whole point is that you know how each system is ran in your thing as an artist. You know how to run your bills. You know how to do your taxes. You know how to charge your business card in a certain way. You know how your templates work, how your systems on your machine work, and your DAW, and how you organize libraries. And like, there's a system to everything you do, and you understand the way it's supposed to be done. And you get so busy to a point where you hand that off to management, but it's very important that you understand how those systems are ran, because then you can identify if someone's fucking you or not. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse or not.
This is open format. Speak freely.
Great. So you don't know if you're getting fucked or not by a manager. But if you know how certain things are supposed to be ran, you can ask specific questions and get a feel for if someone's legit or not. So that's like the biggest reason why that book is very important is, one, you understand how to systemize things on the business side. You know, again, that can apply to marketing. Like, you know, your systems of marketing, and you can recognize, like, if you know how a product should be marketed, if you know how a campaign should be run to make your track reach as many people as possible within your limits, whether that's your honest reach on your Instagram, like organic reach on your Instagram account, or if that is how much money you have, right? If you know what a good marketing plan looks like, you know if a record label is doing their job or not. If a record label is taking 30% of your track or more, which a lot of them do, they damn well better have a good marketing plan in place for you to reach the right audience. The entire purpose of the record label is that they are the people who open you up to reaching the audience you need. And if you know what that's supposed to look like, you can tell if the label's not doing their job, and you can either check them off the list or and now check them off the list saying, yes, they're good, or you can put an X on them on the list and say, do not release with these people at all. There are many labels who release 4 tracks in a day. That's not good for you. You should not be releasing with a label who's releasing 4 tracks in a day. So, like these are the things that are vitally important for you to understand as an artist, and why you should shift into understanding the business side of the industry, and why you need to treat yourself as a business. The more you treat yourself as a business, the more serious you're going to get. The more serious you look at, or the more serious management will look at you. Agencies, record labels, they'll see you as being a legitimate player in this game, and they can make deals with you. So that's like number one of why you should focus over on the business side of things and treat yourself as a business. Sorry, stop. You're like 60% artist, 40% entrepreneur. Okay. And the way I got here was because I was running my own businesses, and I was reading a ton of books, business books, and I was applying it to my business. I was trying to market my business. I was trying to get clients, and I soon realized, like, this is the same. It's the same thing. Being an artist and trying to promote yourself and get reach is the exact same thing as owning a shoe store and trying to get people to come into your shoe store and purchase, right? The only difference is they can listen to your track on their phone through Spotify. So it's like, how do you get them to do that? And that involves a lot of other, shadowy things that you're not taught, which is, how do you build an email list? How do you nurture that email list? How do you run an advertising campaign? How do you organically reach people that's honest, that gets them engaged? How do you, these are all questions you need to ask if you want to be pushing yourself in the right direction. And again, I reemphasize, because a lot of people will say, well, I don't want to do that. I'll just release through a record label. Okay, well, how do you know if the record label is good? If you don't know how to market your own music, then you aren't going to be able to recognize what good marketing at a record label looks like.
Cool. I can speak to that effect a little bit, because you said a lot of stuff that I want to unpack and dig into a little bit, but I just want to kind of mirror with some personal experience, right? So one thing that you said that really stuck out to me was that everyone thinks it starts with a song. You get a hit and things just take off from there. It's like, I'm working on 30 songs in my catalog. It hasn't happened yet. It's not enough just to put out a song. It's not even enough to put out a song that makes it into Audius's trending top 5 for 2 weeks in a row. It's like, there's a consistency to it that you have to keep replicating. Otherwise, your reach falls off, your Spotify listeners fall off. It's like an ongoing, ever-present thing. So I took some time to develop a catalog, and that didn't do the trick. So I took some time to develop an online presence, and that didn't do the trick on its own. So then I took the time to go out and network. And what I met was a lot of these people who were out there playing, getting shows, doing work, getting jobs, but still relatively unknown in the grander scheme of things because they were missing the other half of, having that track, having that presence. But ultimately, I think speaking to what you're saying, the gist of it is missing the business element of it. There's a dude in particular I just interviewed, Ryan Are You Up, incredibly business minded guy. I'm excited for you to see that episode because bro created a business in the industry that placed him as the central connector for all of the local DJs in the area because they come through to his location and they use it to practice live performance on the same gear that they'll be performing on. So he, rather than like focusing too much on the marketing of himself, what he did was he focused on the value that he could bring to others with his business. Like I brought you this practice space, I brought you this equipment, and that in turn works into this feedback loop of having people recognize you as a business authority. It gives you the credibility to be seen in the way that you're describing, and he did it like simultaneous with running paid meta ads to get people into shows that he threw and stuff like that. And so like the reason I name drop him and mention him here is because I know somebody who is a pinnacle example of doing this right while simultaneously knowing plenty of people who could be doing it better. So, I mean, that's what we're here to do is help them do it a little bit better. I wanted to ask you a little bit about specifically what were you doing as a business that you read all of this business knowledge books on behalf of?
What can you phrase that in another way? Like, are you talking like
what's the nature of your business? Like,
okay,
what did you do?
Yeah, so this was with Envious Audio, specifically trying to get clients from the electronic music space. So getting producers, like many of you listening to this, I was trying to get you guys to come to me and let me mix and master your music.
Let me come in here real quick. I just want to do a quick plug for Envious Audio. As a mixing and mastering engineer, he mixed and mastered my first EP, and I have got to be one of his most difficult clients because half of the music was not even done by the time I sent it over. But he did a fantastic job with it. And so, I mean, like, for the record, what sealed the deal for me is you struck me as a really trustworthy guy because of what you were doing with the podcast. I'm like, here's a guy who's talking about how to do the business end right. I feel like I can trust him to do his other job right. Can you go into more detail with your experience working in Envious Audio, the good, the bad, what led to you getting your new gig?
Yeah. Oh man, the good, the bad. I mean, I'll tell you the bad. The bad was probably, I won't even say like the bad is any client specifically. There's very, like, I could probably count on 3 fingers how many bad clients I've had. So, the bad is just, it really is the grind and how niche it was, and like trying to figure out how to pull more people in. It was tough. It took a lot of learning. There's certain things I may do differently now. And like, Envious Audio is like, if I were to get someone to hit me up tomorrow, I'd probably do the work, just because I enjoy doing it, but it's not my main focus right now. My main focus is Lushpuppy, my drum and bass project, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. But being in such a niche environment, speaking only to electronic music producers, trying to do mixing and mastering for them, it's a difficult place to play in. It's the bad is like, the bad and the ugly is trying to convince someone that could technically do this work on their own, at their house for free, and convincing them to pay me to do it. It's a very difficult thing. And most people will look at that and go, unless you're a big name, right? Because this is the thing about EDM producers. Most people believe that they can do it themselves unless a name they recognize who has a legitimate audience is marketing themselves as being able to do the job for them. Then once you that switch So having a name and like a legitimate following and having these big releases on big labels and being a recognized name holds more weight than anything in terms of trying to get mixing and mastering work or production work. It's easy at that point. Not necessarily having a name, everything has to be showcased through your work and your quality. And I will say, since we mixed and mastered your EP, things are a lot different now in terms of my abilities. So, which is funny. Like I've gotten so much better, but I'm not even marketing myself that way. I have reasons why, but the best part is always getting clients like yourself, like fun clients. That's probably the best part about it is meeting new people, engaging with them, and then also connecting them with other artists. I can't tell you how many, since I started my business, one of my best friends now is my buddy Mike Vaughn. He's an amazing progressive house producer, but probably the first couple months I started my business, I met him and I was doing some mixing and mastering work for him. And really he was a part of my first portfolio where I was doing free work, just trying to get some sort of portfolio to showcase, to start marketing myself. And him and I are best friends. So that's probably like the best part of it. And then also I've connected with him with people who he's now best friends with, and they've all written music together and they've had big tracks. So it's like being this source, what you're talking about your buddy being this source of a connector is like, it's probably one of the most fulfilling things. And even if I connect them and I don't talk to any of them ever again, but I know that they're still friends, that's meaningful to me. To me, I've made an impact on someone's life. I've made a difference. And that is more meaningful than doing the actual work or getting paid for it or anything else. It's like, it feels like I've done something right and I did it well. And that a lot of that points to what you're talking about. You said you listened to the Go Giver podcast. I haven't listened to the podcast, but the book, the Go Giver book, can't suggest it enough to people. But I'm sure your buddy has probably read that book and he realized he could be a connector. And one of the themes of that book is being a connector. And that's how I saw myself, especially in the podcast space with Envious Audio, and doing most of my marketing is trying to connect people. And cause I was connected. I had people in my phone that were A&R at record labels. I had people who owned venues, who were promoters, who were vocal engineers, vocalists. Like I had lists of people. So when I would get someone in, they were like, yeah, I'm struggling with XYZ. I could easily be like, hit this dude up, tell him I sent you. And they would get connected. And so that drives a lot of value. And that was a big, that's probably like the best thing about running it, was being that source of connecting others and creating a meaningful impact in their lives. But definitely the struggle is like, it's convincing producers who could probably do this thing on their own when you don't have a big name or big artists supporting your track. Now, towards the end of me really pushing Envious Audio, I was able to put Dr. Fresh on my website in terms of, I didn't work with him, but he played one of my clients' tracks. James Hype played another one of the tracks that I worked on. So and then there were some other big labels that had some releases of work that I worked on. So like that credibility helped, but it's still not enough. When someone lands on your website and they're like, I have no idea who this is, brand names help. Like showing that credibility and making yourself a little bit more legitimate, but sometimes it's just not enough. And that was the biggest struggle, was pulling in clients that trusted me. And the podcast is the easiest thing to build trust. If you can get someone to listen to you for an hour on a podcast, you almost immediately have their trust. And then you have someone listen to 20 hours of that podcast, it becomes a little bit easier to get them to turn into a client. And that happened many times, but yeah, my priorities shifted too in life. So things things changed, which is why, like I said, if anyone's listening to this, go to enviousaudio.com if you want to talk, hit me up there. You can fill out my form if you want to work with me. I'm happy to. It's just not my main focus in terms of promoting it and pushing it.
let's unpack there. So I was gonna follow up with a little bit of personal experience, right? So I interned and graduated from a local production studio. Shout out Derek at SLDP. He brings in guest speakers every so often, and they're typically the people that the students want to hear from, right? AKA talent scouts. These are the guys who are going to be booking you, assuming that you've learned anything from being here, right? So like we had Bangarang, Ian Hiscock, some of the guys in our area who are booking these acts to come play at our local clubs and stuff like that. And they talked about how the first thing they look at is your Instagram. And they want to see, they want to see reputation. They want to see that you are being followed back by other people they know and respect, right? And so like you have this situation coming up very frequently of a super talented dude who's even very well socially connected, but that doesn't reflect on their internet presence. And then at that point they become invisible, right? So with all this mentioning you're doing of marketing, and like with a wealth of episodes that I personally listened to that discuss in detail how to do that, what would you say for anyone listening who hasn't heard either of these before, mine or yours? What is the basic way to start marketing yourself? What's most effective in your experience?
So I am very hesitant to listen to heads of A&R or the booking agents, and I'm hesitant to listen to these guys about what to do in terms of marketing. But that's probably my best piece of advice for you guys is if they're trying to talk to you about marketing, I wouldn't listen to it because they're only looking, they're going to tell you the things that they look for in an artist that they can, I don't know if exploit is the best way, but they're looking for people with an audience. If you have an audience, they're going to come to you. And so the real question is, how do you build that audience? I'm going to tell you, I used to complicate this thing very often, and I struggled with building an audience, and I tested out so many different ways of creating content, and honestly, the content I should have been doing, I was too scared to do. I didn't know how to approach it. There's a lot, like I got too obsessed over perfectionist things. For instance, like my podcast is all audio. I should have been doing video. I probably would have gotten more engagement with video. Why didn't I do video? Because at the time I had an apartment with a shitty background. I took that too personally and I didn't want people to see that. In hindsight, I would have said, fuck it. It doesn't matter. This speaks to who I am and people want to know who I am. They want to see the authenticity. So authenticity is by far the biggest thing. Now, how do you play into authenticity and market it? So if you go to my Instagram, Lushpuppy DnB, I don't have any I have a couple tracks out there shitty. Don't go listen to them, please. If you do, ignore them. Trust me, the shit I have coming out this year is going to be way better, okay? But if you look at my Instagram, it's not super alive. There's some content on there. I've got more content that I'm about to start working on. I'm going to get into that of like how I'm going to build this audience. What you will see on there are a bunch of, if you're easily offended, don't go watch my Instagram, but it's ridiculous skits that I do with my buddy Paxton. They are outrageous. They're insane, but I'm a massive fan of comedy. Huge fan of comedy podcasts, huge fan of comedy videos. I don't like a ton of stand-up, which is kind of funny. It feels too scripted to me. It's not, but people write jokes and whatnot, but I don't like it. I like the natural live, like a live comedy podcast. There's nothing like it. Not live, but like watching a YouTube comedy podcast. There's nothing like it because a lot of it's off the top of the head. And that's the stuff I really like. And so I do skits with my buddy Paxton, who shoots all my content, and we just try to push the boundaries because that's what I enjoy doing. I like pushing buttons. Ever since I grew up, that's my authentic self. That's who I am. That's not a side that I've shown a lot of people, and I'm becoming more comfortable with it because I'm starting to realize you need to kind of put a middle finger to the world of who you are personally, and you need to show who you are. Don't put on a fucking mask. Don't put on a face because you're afraid of who's watching. Now, if you're a huge artist, maybe be a little more hesitant because you've kind of already built up this reputation. If you go beyond that reputation, you can step on some toes and it can cause issues. But if you're just starting off, be as authentic as you can. Who you are, like if you're a gamer and you're in a Discord with your friends, be that authentic self online, because there's an audience that will respond to it and appreciate it. And those are the people you want backing you. You don't want fake people who, if they really knew who you were, they wouldn't like you, because that's just a recipe for disaster down the road. And the more authentic you are, the easier to build an audience. And when you have a big enough audience, because you're so authentic, and let's say you're pushing boundaries that some record labels may not like, or some management might not like, or some agencies might not like, you're going to run into two situations. The first situation is they're going to say, fuck it. This person's authentic. They're growing even more. They make really good art. They make good music. They have a large audience that will buy tickets to shows, play songs, all this stuff. Meaning there's money to be had. They can put it in their pocket. It makes them happy. They'll represent you. They don't care. Okay. That's situation option number one. The possible more likely scenario is situation number two, where they feel your brand is too risky and what you do is too risky. And maybe some of you listening to this, your authentic self isn't that risky, and that's okay. So then option one is going to be more on the table for you. I'd say my brand and what I'm trying to do is a little more risky. Okay. So option two is probably, it may end up being the route that I have to go down, which is probably these people don't want to sign your tracks. You could probably get some bookings somewhere. Maybe you could get some management. You could probably get some agency management because, you know, they're just getting you connected with venues to play at, and they're happy to, you know, take a chunk of the ticket sales and bar sales or whatever. But ultimately, you may have to go more independent, and it becomes a lot easier to go independent when you've grown an audience yourself. You can do live streams. You can, you know, you can release your own music and put it out publicly, and most people will go check it out. You could hit up venues and skip the management and agency and book your own shows if you know that you have a big enough audience in a certain spot, and fill a room. And, you know, maybe you hire a promoter and they handle all the back end stuff in terms of like getting the event going. But, that, like, those are your two options when you start building an audience and being your authentic self. Now, what your authentic self, what that entails, I don't know. What do you like to do? I can tell you about what I like to do, which is I love gaming. I love pushing boundaries with ridiculous skits, you know, and pushing boundaries while I'm gaming and talking to other people and either messing with them or cracking jokes and having fun. That's what I enjoy doing. That's what I do outside when I'm away from this desk. I crack jokes at my wife all the time and she shoots them back, and I say the most inappropriate things I can possibly think of in front of my mother because I'm looking for a reaction from her. I think it's funny. That's what I enjoy doing. So like showcasing myself as that on Instagram has helped. Like, I don't have a lot of followers, right? I don't have a lot of content on my Instagram, but I have had people that follow me because they've seen one of my videos and they hit me up and they love it and they've asked for the next videos. I've had some of my wife's coworkers who I barely know. I don't follow them on Instagram. They started following me and they watch every single one of my videos. They comment on them. And when I'm at a work party with my wife, they come up and they go, when are you making another video? Like, because I'm being authentic, that resonates with people. It doesn't matter their political beliefs, their religious beliefs, take ideology out of it. If people resonate with something that's authentic, they're going to appreciate it and they're going to be excited for the next thing. And that is the biggest thing for you to do. So for me, it's making these skits, and then I've been reshaping my entire audio setup right now, and my PC setup, because I'm about to start recording gaming videos, and I'm going to be cutting together kind of compilation style clips of gaming sessions and taking the most funny parts and just cutting a video and putting it online. I'm going to put it on YouTube. I'm going to put it on Instagram. That's going to be baked in as the Lushpuppy brand. because it's what I do. I love gaming, and I love gaming with friends, and I want to I can't tell you how many belly laughing experiences, like on the floor legitimately laughing my ass off, I've had gaming with friends, and those experiences are so amazing, and I want to share that with people because I know other people will have similar reactions. And it feels like I'm wasting away that time. You know, it's not wasted, but like I see it as an opportunity to share with the world more of my authentic self, to build more of that brand image in that audience. And the second you personally are building that audience, and it's not a record label getting you onto a playlist, or them sending your song out to an email list, or them making a post on social media, once it's you building that and you own that audience, like the bargaining chips kind of shift. It like the labels and the agencies and the management, they don't necessarily have all the cards in their hand, right? You have the cards. You have the control. You can say yes or no to people because they are going to be the ones that approach you. Now, maybe not necessarily with record labels, like agencies and management will reach out to you. Record labels, if they know who you are, will probably be happy to say yes to your record, so long as, right, we're talking about option one, which is where they see your brand is safe. Or maybe it's a little risky, but they're okay with it. If option one works for you, then great. You can do that all day. If you've built that audience, you're going to have no problem marketing and keep building an audience as long as you're authentically and consistently putting out content and showcasing who you are. But then you always have option two, right? If you're going to be a little more risky and that's who you are and you want to push that, then if you're building an audience, you can do it independently. You just have to make some smart business decisions on how you're going to monetize that and what you would like to do. Which, because, I mean, for me, like, ultimately, if I'm making gaming videos, I'm probably going to end up streaming at some point, right? Now, what am I? Am I more of a streamer or more of a musician? Or doing both? And guess what? I don't have to lean on a record label to make me money or an agency to book me shows to make me money. No. I still have this streaming. COVID happens. Well, it's fine. All right, whatever. I'll stream the whole time. I'm still making money, right? You don't have to worry about these things that get in the way. And this was the whole point of the podcast, Electronic Dance Money. And this is the thing that I've been trying to teach people is like, you need to start thinking of ways that you need to shift to make yourself, I guess, more risk averse. Like you're not worried to take risks because it won't affect you, or if there's a large scale pandemic or something happens where you can't leave or whatever, like you're not in a bad, like if you're reliant entirely on travel to make your money by being booked at shows, that's going to be a problem if you can't travel, right? Now you're panicking. How are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to take care of your family? How are you going to do certain things? If that's how you're making all of your money. So you need to be thinking more outside the box, more like an entrepreneur. And for me, it's being this authentic self of creating these videos, doing YouTube gaming clips, and then probably eventually streaming at some point.
Beautiful breakdown. I would love to come into that with a little bit of personal experience, right? Mm-hmm. So I just want to say for the record, it is a delight to see you moving into the adult humor space. Mm-hmm. As somebody who spent a little bit of time there, that like I feel deeply, like on a personal level, that artist number 2 route, right? So it's like for me, like when I started out, let me paint a picture for you, right? Imagine this dude freshly arrested, reapproaching music because all of the doors in his life just slammed shut. I spent 2 years not knowing if I was going to do like a long stint in prison. And like at the same time, I'm making this music to try and express myself, and I'm putting together like basic cover art, basic visualizers, doing everything I can to support this music in a way that seems like super serious and like this is me making music for the heart and stuff like that. And then, crickets, nothing, because I didn't have the reputation to back up music of that seriousness so I just started to actually, like, I hesitate to call it your recommendation. I heard about the platform Threads on your podcast and then proceeded to pick it up months later, right? And I just started speaking from the id brain, like posting out-of-pocket adult humor as a way of both expressing myself and like pushing my data into the advertising circuit. It's like it's a feedback loop that draws people in. They see a joke I made online, and they might feel so inclined to check out my music, right? And that to this day has become what I'm best known for, probably even better than my music, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And so like it really, there is a truthfulness to it too. If you are not an industry plant, if you are a homegrown bedroom artist and you have no audience to speak of, it's vital to do something to set yourself apart, even if that means taking the risk, even if it means people are going to look at your content and the wrong people are going to be like, ugh, I'm not touching this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be willing to take risks. Whatever. Okay, listen, like, again, I want to make it very clear that this example that I'm talking about, and especially talking about risks and making more of a risky brand, I'm not saying that's what you should do if that's not who you are. Don't do that. That's not authentic. It's going to be cringy. It's going to look bad. Like, you're going to probably make the wrong joke or say the wrong thing. That being said, to me, nothing is off limits. That's just who I am. I'm such a comedic soul. I love comedy. I love pushing boundaries. So to me, nothing is off limits. Now, are there bad jokes that don't land that probably aren't good and shouldn't be said? Sure, of course. There's a lot of things like that. But you don't know what the boundary is until you're playing with it. And then once you know the limit, then you can push it. And so for many of you, that might not be it, but like, this is the best way I can present this example. And I especially the like adult humor comedic stuff, more people like it than one might think. Especially if you live and breathe in the music industry. I think there's a lot of fake people who kind of virtue signal and act like they don't like certain things, but behind closed doors, like, to me, it's most of it's a facade. Most of it is a mask. It's bullshit. If they're in a closed room with a really close friend, they're not worried about making a risky joke or saying the wrong thing, and they'll openly say it. And again, that's inauthentic to me. Now, if you have moral beliefs in terms of like saying things publicly, maybe you could have an argument for why you wouldn't go that route. But to me, it's still not being authentic, right? We're talking about authenticity here, and more people are starting to be okay with jokes. And there is a deeply like starved part of the world, and especially in the United States, there's a hunger for more authentic and open comedy and funny things, and people like jokes you shouldn't laugh at. People are becoming a bit more open to laughing at, because like as a country, we're starving for that kind of break of reality to point fun at absurdities. And so that's why I'm willing to kind of push the boundaries there more, is because I see it as something that people want more. The market is wanting it. I feel I can deliver it. I've had some hilarious moments. It's just something that I really want to pursue, and I see an opening for it. And now again, let's talk about like, if you're wanting to go that route that I'm talking about, this risky joke route, you got to be willing to offend. You're gonna offend some people. Like, you're gonna make people upset. People are gonna, and they'll let you know, publicly. And so you got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with, later on down the road, as long as you're still being your authentic self, people are gonna say no to you because of who you are as a brand. And to me, I'm okay with that, because I'm not going to change who I am just to try to get something that I want. That's going to create deep rooted unhappiness for myself. The kind of sellout, think about selling out your soul is not good. It creates chaos, in your life, and you may not feel the chaos now, but you'll feel it later. So that's why, and to me, that can translate to any authenticity. If you are inauthentic, it will create chaos in your life personally. This is in like, not even necessarily professionally, but personally. You're going to invite the wrong people into your life as friends, as partners in a relationship. You're going to probably teach your kids the wrong things. You're going to like, it will create issues in your personal life if you are inauthentic. So, and if you're inauthentic and show that authentic self, that's when it gets really bad. So, that's why I'm like, the best thing for you to do in terms of marketing is to just be unapologetically yourself, be as authentic as you can, and showcase that in your content. You know, if you like to draw, do that. If you like to cook, showcase that on your artist profile. It doesn't matter as long as you're building an audience.
Most definitely. I think musicians get so zeroed in on the music aspect that they forget that in essence, we are entertainers, and that entertainment comes in many forms. And that if you need an alternate form of entertainment to get ears on the primary thing that you're pushing, then it's almost like the end justifies the means in that sense. You know, like
yeah, it does. But then it also, like, you connect these two worlds that you didn't think you could connect, and then you also should be looking at how do you connect them even more, right? If you like to do cooking videos, how can you implement cooking with music, right? I've never seen someone do a cooking stream while they DJ. That sounds pretty interesting. That's a lot. There's a lot of things you got to think about while you're doing that. Make sure you're not burning something. Make sure something's not undercooked while you're also doing a train. Like that is both funny and also like it's crazy seeing someone do something like that. That would be wild. So it's like thinking outside the box things like that to implement in your content, again, if that's your authentic self. Or like, can you sample while you're cooking a meal? Can you record everything that you're cooking and turn it into a track? How do you do that? You know?
Right. No, it's these niche pockets of yet undeveloped entertainment that somebody identifies, and you know, it's sink or swim at that point. You either discovered something that people didn't know they needed, or you've discovered something that people definitely didn't need, and you move on to the next thing. It is what it is.
Yeah. Again, and that's gonna happen often. You're gonna do a lot of in this journey. You're gonna fail a lot. You're gonna fail a lot. You're gonna put all of your eggs in one basket for a month trying to push this one thing that you think is a good idea, and it lands flat and it doesn't work. That's okay. Move on to the next thing. Maybe it's just a timing thing, you know? Don't be afraid to repost content later on, because you might have just posted at the wrong time, or maybe you didn't have the right audience size, and maybe you're a little bit bigger and you try to repost that content again or retry it, and then it hits, right? There's a big timing thing to all of this as well.
Most definitely. Speaking of moving on, we spent so much time unpacking that content strategy in particular that I'd really love to redirect a little bit into what you've got going on now with your music. So you developed a strategy, right, that relies on these this skits, this humor content, pushing boundaries, and ultimately serves to further the Lushpuppy brand. Do I understand that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What is Lushpuppy?
Yeah, so Lushpuppy was conceived by, again, one of my best friends, Paxton Connors, who go check him out. Bear with me. I'm gonna pull up his Instagram so that you guys can go check him out, because he is just an unbelievable videographer and photographer. It is Paxton_loves_you, the letter U. He is unbelievable, coolest dude ever. And so I went and saw, it was 2022. I think it was 2022, maybe. I think it was 2022. I went and saw my buddy Noah Neiman play at a festival here, and he gave me all access. And then he left early, and I just spent the day there, and Paxton was there, and I was like hanging out in trailers, like talking to crazy people, hanging out backstage, like with a crowd of 40,000 people. It was crazy, like an experience I've never had before. And that kind of, at this time, I had taken a break from music production and being an artist, and I was focusing on mixing and mastering and running a business. And I decided to, it was then that I was like, I was starting to get into drum and bass. I was producing a little bit of drum and bass, and I was like, I feel the itch. Like, I knew it was going to come back around. And I was like, this is the time. Like, I've got Paxton who can shoot all my content. We have these really good ideas. And I'm getting more connected with people. I could leverage the podcast. Like, there's all these other things that I could do and kind of like build this. Like, it felt like all of the pieces were finally falling into place. And then I had this aha experience at the festival. I was like, I'm going to fucking do it. And so I told Paxton about it. I was like, hey, I want you to help me with this. He's super connected with people where we can get shows. We'll shoot content. We'll do all this stuff. And so we got together and I told him the plan. And I was like, let's come up with a name. And we sat down for like 3 hours one day, just coming up with all these names. And then we landed on Lushpuppy, and I was like, that's fucking it. And then we started thinking, okay, the brand needs to stand out. How do we make it stand out? If anyone listening to this knows drum and bass is, I'll be honest, like, if I am able to make any traction in drum and bass, the like, probably the people listening who've been listening to drum and bass for 20 years are going to hate me. They will hate my brand. They do not like it. They don't want me to make drum and bass. And it's because I am so opposite of what drum and bass is. Most drum and bass artists are blacks and reds, and they paint their nails, and they kind of have long hair, and they're dark and ominous and mysterious. And that's cool and all, but it's been done. Sorry, everyone's done it. So to stand out is difficult unless you do what I've done, which is create Lushpuppy. My branding colors are like pastel, like pink, blue, white, like ice cream colors. Okay, I have a whole outfit. My shirt is bright pink. I have white tight jeans, and then I have these blue high top sneakers. Like, that's my outfit. It sticks out. My logo is this like bubbly puppy dog. The lettering on my name are these big bubbles. Like, it's so opposite of what the drum and bass community is and what people are used to as an artist that it immediately sticks out. And then what I mix on stage is like the most aggressive drum and bass you've ever fucking heard. Like 4 on the floor, hit hard, Reaper style tracks, just mad aggressive. TR tactics, like heavy shit. And it's like, it's the perfect contrast. You've got this bright, bubbly person on stage. When I go crazy on stage, one of the first shows I played as Lushpuppy, most of the floor was empty. I was opening. By the end of the show, I was the opener. By the end of my set, everyone was front in stage in front of me, going insane. I had a mosh pit going. I can't remember who it was that was playing that night, who was headlining, but like, dude, the manager of the place came up and was like, dude, that was insane. Great job. Holy shit, that was amazing. I was then later told that I was louder than the headliner. They turned me up louder than the headliner. And this is something that people are told often is don't go more aggressive than the headliner. You're going to get kicked off stage. Fuck that. Again, what's your authentic self? Be your authentic self. I went as hard as I possibly could, and it got the place fucking moving. And I was great on the mic, dancing around like crazy. Like, people fed off of who I am authentically on stage, to the point where the people who would typically like shut it down were into it. They liked it. So, like, if you're going to go that hard, you better not be standing around being boring, right? That's what will probably get you kicked off, because people, you could play the hardest set of your entire life, but if you're boring on stage, people don't respond to it very well. So like that's the entire brand, in and of itself. These funny comedy videos, bright colors, bubbly personality on stage, but contrasting with writing dark music, playing dark music. But then I also create a lot of like poppy stuff. Like I'm mixing this drum and bass world with like the current stuff that I'm making with more like 2014, 2015 electro and progressive style stuff. It's a little bit different than what people are posting today. And again, it plays into the brand and I know it will stick out. So Lushpuppy was this idea that just my buddy Paxton and I had where we got to go aggressive. Like we need to stand out. We need to push boundaries. And if we end up having to go independent because of that, that's totally fine. But the whole purpose of it is to kind of take something that hasn't been done in the drum and bass space, open up the world to something a little bit different there, and hoping people latch onto it. Definitely in the US, people will. We'll see what the UK does because they're, you know, a lot of the snobby drum and bass people are out in the UK, and I get it. Listen, I've since the day I started this brand, I'm expecting to get a lot of shit. I'm expecting the drum and bass community to not accept me, and that's okay. Some will. I don't think the entire drum and bass community won't accept me, right? I think the videos I create will get them to accept me a little bit more. They'll realize that it's authentic, like who I'm being is authentic, and they'll respect it. But to me, it's like trying to bridge the world of people who don't listen to drum and bass. How can I attract them into this space? How can I grow the drum and bass community there, and also reach a wider audience that way? And through it, doing it with this brand image, and some of these videos I'm creating, I think I'll be able to kind of bridge that gap. So that's essentially what Lushpuppy is.
No, I like it. It's I really like especially how you've identified the way it does things differently and it stands out, right? Because I think some people need that spelling out. It's like they can see that something is different, but they don't know what the X factor is, so to speak. So to be able to let people know this is by intention, my logo, my content, versus the opposite polarity with the intensity of the music is all by design. This is a way to represent, you know, like I can also speak to this a little bit, right? It's like try and paint this picture of being like a goofy troll guy on the internet, right? And then when I hop on stage, I go hard. It's like I played Black Void, which is if you're not familiar, like super underground organization in my area that throws shows at like different pop-up locations, secret text list kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super cool. They have this like this mystique, this vibe. I got booked on a house show there, and I'm a primarily bass artist, right? So I was like, I'm gonna make this the most dubsteppy house that I possibly can. Just like quick mixing, like 3 back-to-back bass house drops, no time to rest at all. Slipped in as much UKG, like garage bangers as I possibly could. Absolutely broke the rules, and people responded well to it. I didn't have a single person come up to me afterwards and be like, yo, that was too much, or yo, I didn't vibe with that. It's like I was playing alongside like, you know, some like minimal tech house artists, and they were doing a fantastic job. But when I popped up, I was like, time to bring the energy up a little bit.
Yeah, you stuck out. It's being authentic, dude. This thing, authenticity is everything. The thing I hate that I'll get often from producers who are starting to DJ, and they book their first shows. They're like, hey, I'm playing for so and so. They do this kind of music. What should I play? Or is it okay to play that? You should never be asking, is it okay to play XYZ? Unless it's the headliner's track, do not ever play. Like, that's just disrespectful, right? That's obvious. Don't do that. But the last thing you should be asking people is if you can do something. Fuck that. They're not your mother. They're not your father. You're an adult. You make your own decisions. Okay. If you want to do something, do it. If it's authentically yourself, fucking do it. Just do it, man. Not to get into Nike's damn
Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, just it's like the point is you need to be authentic. If you get booked for a house show and the promoter knows that you do dubstep or bass music, then you should play it. Okay, that's kind of them saying it's okay that you play it. If they didn't do their research on you, that's their fucking problem. Okay, you're here to do one job, and that's to play the things you like and be authentically yourself. And that's why people resonate with it. Even if they don't listen to that, they might be into it because you're being authentic. So, yeah, it's just, you gotta do what you want to do, and just, yeah, you gotta be authentic.
I agree wholeheartedly. I want to dig into just a couple more general questions that I had, But honestly, we got so far into that ate up most of the time I had budgeted for this. I guess let me ask by saying, like, the music you're making, how are you doing it? What do you use to do it? What would you recommend for people who are trying to make music of this genre? Like, what's essential and key?
So I think learning how to improv on the piano is like massively beneficial. So I would do, if I were you, I would do if you already don't know piano, I would do a lot of research on like learn your scales, learn your basic chord structures, and just like practice piano for at least 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes will eventually turn into 30 minutes and then probably eventually an hour, especially as you build up, like learn different techniques. How do you play arpeggios? How do you get better fingering skills where you can have independent fingerings? Looking up those techniques and then practice those every day, and then learn a new technique like every week or maybe every month, and add that to your like practice session for the day. So like learning piano, and then once you understand a lot of that, you can start doing some improv stuff. But on top of that, one of the things that I really love to do is, if I'm just, most of the time I start with piano. So I'll start with like 30 minutes to an hour of just like playing piano, just playing around. I'll do my practice session and then I'll play around with piano until I like find a chord structure I like, and I'll start to build off of that. But then if I'm like stuck and I'm not getting something that's interesting, what I love to do, and this helps with like your ear training and also learning piano a bit more, and also understanding song structure, is I'll pull up Spotify, I'll pull up a drum and bass playlist, and I'll just shuffle it, and I'll like skip through songs, and I'll sit there on each song and I'll try to figure out the chord structure. So I figure out what key they're in, and then I'm figuring out their chord structure, and then I'll try to figure out their melody, and I'll see if I can play both of them together. And that will help you understand how chords are structured and how melodies are structured. And then from there, I'll change what they have. I'll change their chord structure. I'll be like, oh, I like this. Well, if I went in this key instead and I did that, and I'll play around, and then I'll find something. And once I find something, then it's really easy to build off of. So like, that's the biggest thing in terms of like starting tracks, and getting a bit more creative, and like it all starts with the chords and the melody. And dude, one thing I learned from my buddy Dave Reed, who's a part of Tritonal, is that he will write a melody for 6 hours. One melody for one song. So he's sitting there rewriting the melody over and over and over and over and over and over. And through that, maybe he adjusts the chord structure. And I've started to realize I'm not doing that now. I often would like write one melody and be like, that's it, we're going with that. And it's not the melody. I should have kept going, because when I keep going, I find something better and even better and even better. So like, spending more time on the like intricacies of writing a melody and understanding how to write a melody in different modes and all of that, and structures of a melody, and like spending hours just trying to find the best melody is one of the best ways you can stand out and like find really good things to put in your track. Now, the second thing with that is sound design. So many of us are stuck on Splice, and I get it. It's easy. It's a good way to learn sound design, but you need to like, trust me, if you want to stand out, you need to be designing your own sounds. I used to use Splice, and I was, don't get me wrong, I still use Splice. I'll still find sounds designed by other people, but I'll tweak them to where it fits what I'm thinking. Like if I can't design a sound and get it right, or find one that I like, then I'll find one that's close, and then I'll adjust it until I have it where it's at. But sound design is by far, like, it's something I've obsessed over. I'll shout out Centorial. If you don't know what Centorial is, get Centorial. It's worth every penny. This guy built this VST from scratch, and it's a course that takes you through. You start off with literally one knob, flipping from a saw wave to a square wave. And you like have to do testing, and you have to recreate sounds. And the VST, he adds new modules each lesson, and the VST expands and gets bigger, and there's bigger and bigger patches that you have to recreate absolutely from scratch. So it trains your ear on how to hear for certain things and sounds, and you can redesign any sound in your head. You can redesign any sound that you hear in a track If you go through this course, it's amazing. So having like dedicated sound design sessions, trying to design sounds in your own tracks, that's the biggest thing that I've done that's really started to shift my focus. I'm starting to go less and less to pre-designed sounds, or if I do go to a preset, it's ones that I've designed in my own sessions, and then I'll adjust them. But I've started to just sound design in the session because like I need the specific sound, and the best way for me to get it is to play around with it until I get it to where I want it. So I'm reaching less and less to presets made by other people or going to Splice. So those are to me the two biggest things that you need to do in terms of getting yourself in a better spot as a producer or learning to produce, is learning piano, get comfortable on the piano, practice every day, and then work on sound design. The other thing that those are the biggest things. I don't worry about plugins either. Like it's that can be a big trap. You're not one plugin away from being the biggest artist that you want to be. No, that's all done with song structure, with melody, with choosing the right sounds. That's how you get a hit track.
I would tend to agree with that. As a person with the digital version of Gas, like gear acquisition syndrome, I hoard plugins. I find myself coming back to the same 3 or 4 for everything I make because I know those inside and out. I can hit the sounds and like the specific type of creation. You know that what the sound design that's come to represent my brand. It's generated from these certain VSTs, right? And so when I hop into something else and I listen to their presets, I'm like, that doesn't sound like me. I can maybe use it, but like it wasn't built by me. It wasn't built for me versus like, you know what I mean? I think people, they fall into this trap of listening to an artist that has a signature sound, right? And they're like, oh, all of his shit sounds the same. But that's the beauty of it is you hear it and you know it belongs to that person. And it's like you get to watch their sound evolve over time. And you just don't see that replicated with entirely spliced built out tracks, right?
Yeah. You could if you're using a splice sample that is on the most most downloaded, like you could probably pick it out, right? Unless you're doing some insane processing. So don't like, if you're very young in your career, that's fine. But like play around with sound design. The sooner you do it, the better off you will be in the long run. The more comfortable you'll be. The other thing too, because I find this happens with me, I'm pretty ADD where I'd like producing can be very boring for me and mundane and difficult because like that sweet thing that everyone is the big drop, right? When you get the build up, when you get a good break, good build up and a good drop, when you have it, that feeling, there's nothing like it, right? When you're listening to your song on repeat outside of the studio over and over because you know you have something good and you're like ready to get back into the track, that feeling is so good, but getting there is so difficult. And so it can be mundane and boring and like it's just like a grind fest. So one other piece of advice I can give to you guys is jump into a track, start writing, and just build out a 16 bar phrase. That's it. Just do 16 bars. That's all you need to do. Make it as interesting as possible. Doesn't need to be a drop. Can be a break. Can be an intro. Can be whatever you want. And if you feel like there's something there, keep going. As long as you feel the momentum that you can keep going, keep going. The second you start getting bored, you should at least be doing 4 hours a day. 4 hours of producing a day. Like if you want to be serious about it, treat it like a part-time job, okay? 4 hours a day. The second you get bored with an idea, close it, open a new idea, start over. Just keep doing that as many times as you can until you hit that 4 hour mark, and do that as often as you can. That was the biggest change that I made at the start of last year. I wrote probably 80 or 90 ideas, and I think full tracks that were at least like a minute and a half long, I think I wrote 40 or 50. Now, out of that, there's really only like 4 or 5 that I'm happy to release, but that's a lot of music. It's the most music I've ever written. And it was because of this process of like writing idea after idea after idea and grinding these 4 hours out And bear in mind, I had a child last year too in May. I have a wife, I have a full-time job. So if you're sitting there thinking that's a lot of time, just understand how valuable my time is. And I was also working with clients at this time as well, both in marketing and with Envious Audio. So multiple clients as an entrepreneur, full-time job, wife, baby, also doing music and hanging out with friends like gaming. I don't have a lot of time in the day. And I was also working out, going to jujitsu. There's a lot of shit that I was doing. Okay. So if I can figure out how to do it, I guarantee you can. You got to get consistent and you need to be dedicated. So, but that, like, those three things: piano, sound design, idea after idea after idea, 4 hours a day, until you find something, because you will find something quickly. I noticed every fourth idea, for some reason, every fourth idea was it for me. It was the thing that turned into a track. Now it's to the point where I, like, almost every idea I can turn into a full track. Now, is it releasable? Maybe not. Probably not. Not all of them will be. But I'm to the point where when I sit down on my DAW, I can almost guarantee I will turn it into a track.
I feel like a lot of people could benefit from that expertise. Like, specifically, I was talking to a lo-fi artist from India, Prithvi. He talks about doing like these 30-day challenges, like making a beat every single day, and it's unilateral across genres. It's like you are going to make some garbage dog shit ideas in your career. Like, always. Not every single one of them is going to be good. I find most of mine are shit. I find myself returning to these old projects, and what I've noticed is that, like, the old projects take the longest to finish. When I start something brand new, usually it flows like end to beginning because I've accumulated that experience since then. But like going back to these projects where I lacked like the organization and understanding what I was doing, it's a lot of like rehab, damage control. How can I salvage this and polish the turd up like it's releasable? And like, I think you got to be willing to make peace with like having invested time into a creative project that is not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. And so Dave Reed from Tritonal, he likes to call this, there's this shadowy part of the music industry called the music mafia, is what he likes to call it. And these are the people making all the decisions, controlling everything. They decide whether or not your track gets released, whether or not you're going to play a show, whether like they control a lot of stuff. And the biggest lesson he taught me was you need to be comfortable with having what you believe is your best track ever, and it will be turned down by a record label simply because someone might not be having a good day. It's going to happen. So, if you're in this seriously and you end up at that level, you'll know what I'm talking about. It happens. The best stuff will get turned down and never released. What you do that, you can, I'm sure, figure out a way to independently release it if you want, but that's going to happen. Like, and a lot of the times when you're being turned down by labels, it's not even necessarily because they don't think your track is good enough. It's because they have too many releases lined up. And so they simply can't say yes. They have to say no. Like, that's another situation. So, understanding that, like, you can put all of your love and effort into the best, and maybe it is the best track ever written in the entire world, and it could still get turned down. So just understand that. Don't get dissuaded. You're gonna get kicked in the face a lot. You're gonna be on the ground, upset, crying because of the no's you get and the being turned down. But it's a part of the grind. It's a part of what it's like being an artist and a musician, and you just got to kind of get back up and get back to it. Like, keep moving on. You got to keep pushing forward.
It do be like that. Listen, Christian, I want to start driving things to a close here just because I have somewhere to be in a second. So could you summarize like what you think, like, what would you say is the pinnacle takeaway that you've learned like on your career path, having worked with you on the back end to seeing you out in front? What was most transformative from you? What do you think is the single thing that people could do, or like a couple of things to change the way they approach this and to get past the hump of like feeling like their efforts are fruitless?
Time management, consistency, and treating it like a job every day. Those are the biggest things that I've learned is you got to have good time management. And good time management, consistency with that, and then treating it like a job. But you also need to come at it because this is where burnout happens, and it's happened to me plenty of times. I've had to go to therapy because of burnout from forcing myself being in the studio. It's part of the reason why I had to step away from producing. Which is why it's different now for me, where I can be more in this grind and understand that it's everyday thing. And not stress out and burn out now. It still happens occasionally, but you got to be okay with it. Being okay with taking a break, being okay that today might just not be the day and maybe you need to step away. Like in understanding that stepping away and saying no and not doing this thing that you feel you need to do, being okay with stepping away from it isn't the end of the world. It's not going to change what you do tomorrow. It's not going to change where you're going to be at in 10 years. It's hardly going to affect anything. More than likely it's going to help you more than anything. So like having kind of this grindy mindset of treating it like a job, having good time management, being consistent, but then also being okay with breaking that at times when you need to take a break.
Cool. Rock solid advice. I could not possibly plug the Electronic Dance Money podcast enough. I know it's still out there. Guys, if you're listening, please go check it out. I was raised on that basically. It is so good to see you moving on to bigger and better things though. And so I just wanted to say respect. Like I like the direction you're headed. I like your personality. You've been a great guest. Thank you so much for, showing up and like sharing this with me. It's like, I had a lot of fun. Is there anything you want to plug? Where can people find you? What's next for you?
Yeah, Lushpuppy DnB is my handle on everything. Mostly active on Instagram. I don't even know if I have a TikTok. I avoid TikTok as much as I can, but definitely Instagram's where I'm most active. You can email me lushpuppydnb@gmail.com. Head to Envious Audio if you want mixing and mastering. You can hit me up there. I do occasionally stream with my buddy Dave from Tritonal, DVM. You can find him on Twitch at Daveverse Music. So twitch.com/Daveverse Music. And we do feedback streams. So if you want feedback from Tritonal, go to his Twitch and join the Discord. He does feedback. We're going to start doing it, I think, twice a month. But you'll see me in there hanging out constantly. So yeah, Lushpuppy DnB. Check out the podcast Electronic Dance Money. I'm still gonna keep it up. I may come back to it, who knows? It's really more of a time thing. Like I just have too much on my plate and other things I would like to focus on. And so that's why I'm not. It's a lot of work hunting guests, recording episodes, editing them, marketing that. Like it's a lot to do it twice a month, and there's other things that I need to dedicate my time to that feel more valuable for me and my family. And so that's why that's on pause. A podcast of some sort will probably come back in the near future. So yeah.
I think you've more than put your time in and are have a justified retire in your future. I just wanted to show my support for our previous.
Thank you.
I don't think I was knocking it for you.
Yeah.
It up.
At all.
You've been a great guest. Christian, thank you so much. Till next time, I'd love to have you back sometime.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. Just let me know. Take care.